Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inland Compassion's new podcast series called Unhoused Solutions. Is There Hope? A new debate series where we will be debating different topics related to unsheltered homelessness. In this podcast series, we will be inviting different guests to come on and debate different topics such as, does housing first actually work? Is there any solutions to actually ending homelessness? And much more. But before we get started with today's first episode, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button so you can be notified of all of the new episodes we will be having every single week. And if you would like to stay on track with all the new episodes that we will be doing, please visit inlandcompassion.org. This is where we will be uploading all of our videos as well as all of our new scholarly research, infographics, and data that we collect here in Riverside County and in California. So please, if you would like to be a part of the movement and get on the show and debate one of us, please email me at jarmour@inlandcompassion.org. That is JARMOUR at inlandcompassion.org. Now, let's get into today's new topic for our first episode, which is based on a scoping review I had completed for one of my doctoral assignments at Cal Baptist University. Now, let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first episode of the Inland Compassion podcast, Unhoused Solutions. Is There Hope? I'm your host, James Armour, LCSW doctoral candidate at Cal Baptist University and the founder of Inland Compassion, and I'm very glad that you're here today. This podcast exists because the unhoused crisis in America continues to grow year by year and has officially been criminalized in California. Not only is there a housing shortage and an unaffordable cost of living, but it is now even harder to get off the streets because when somebody is swept up in a homeless sweep, not only are they getting their belongings thrown away, but they may face fines and charges that make it even harder to bounce back and secure housing. Not only are these factors making it difficult for people to become stable, but now with programs such as the Care Court, many are risking being conserved when they are unable to meet the program's demands, leaving a paper trail of surveillance that justifies taking away someone's rights. Now remember, the unhoused are our neighbors, and people deserve better than that. We cannot assume that the unhoused do not want services, and we cannot assume that everyone has a mental health or substance use issue. However, these topics will be debated in further episodes, so please stick around. And again, email me if you would like to be a part of this discussion. For now, let's start the debate series with the first episode, which will set the stage by exploring which interventions are already working and the factors that contribute to long-term housing stability for the unhoused by reviewing the themes from a scoping review I completed for my doctorate in social work at Cal Baptist University. Therefore, these themes we cover today will be debated in future episodes for those who request to join the podcast. Now, before we get started, please hit that like and subscribe button. Now, I apologize if you can hear my German Shepherd in the background snoring, but she's a very cute dog, and I'll tell you what, it is quite all right. But for today's scoping review that I wrote is called From the Streets to Stability, Interventions and Factors for Long-Term Housing Stability for Adults Experiencing Chronic or Unsheltered Homelessness. After analyzing 27 empirical published studies over the past 20 years, the scoping review was able to reveal what actually has been working for the long term in regards to addressing unsheltered and chronic homelessness. So one might ask, why is this even important? Well, this is important because homelessness has been rising for decades despite governments and organizations spending billions and billions of dollars addressing the crisis, yet the issue continues to rise. So the real question I want to answer for y'all today is this: what actually works and why? But before we dive into the themes, we need to set the context to gain an understanding of the exact scale of the issue of homelessness in America. In January 2024, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development counted 771,480 people in America experiencing homelessness on a single night across the country. That is an 18% increase from the year before. Now, let's zoom into California. California is home to 44% of all chronically homeless individuals in the entire nation. That means nearly half of the people in America who have been unhoused for a year or longer are here in our Golden State. In Riverside County, the county where I'm from, homelessness has been rising steadily for over a decade, mirroring the same issues many counties in California is facing today. So, why does that even matter? This matters because studies show that the average life expectancy for someone experiencing unsheltered homelessness is between 42 and 52 years old, compared to the national average of 77 years old. Not only does this statistic reveal that being homeless reduces someone's lifespan, but it also reveals how dire the situation is, which many find themselves in due to situations that are beyond their control. As the founder of a nonprofit that addresses homelessness, many individuals and families call for assistance because they face eviction for many different reasons outside of their control, such as being evicted for advocating for themselves when they ask their landlord to fix their plumbing or the roofing. Matter of fact, I have seen this numerous times where someone on Section 8 will have issues with their home. Then they will say something to the landlord will get bothered. Once they start complaining about the unsafe living condition, the next thing you know, they have an eviction notice on the door and find themselves on the streets because Section 8 does not react in time, and some of their caseworkers blame the victim. This will definitely be something that we debate about in the future. However, moving on, I want to share about a few other incidents I have seen working as the founder and president of Inland Compassion. For example, I have seen people become homeless because their family member was the breadwinner of the family and then their loved one passed away. Or someone became homeless because they got laid off from their job and could not find a new job in time, and unemployment was not enough to cover their rent. No matter what the situation is, nobody deserves to lose part of their lifespan, and many who find themselves in these situations may need help, and without it, they may never escape homelessness. So, why is this happening? Well, many believe people become homeless because of drugs or mental health issues. However, that is not what the research shows. What the research reveals is that there is a severe shortage of affordable housing in California. In fact, 88% of extremely low income renters in this state are spending more than half of their income on rent. When your rent takes most of your paycheck or your entire disability check, there's almost nothing left when you have to pay the bills. Therefore, when something goes wrong, a medical bill, a job loss, a mental health crisis, there is no cushion to save someone facing possible homelessness. Add that to overcrowded shelters, high rates of untreated mental illness and substance use, racial inequities, and policies that haven't kept up with the need, and you have the crisis that we're in today. So one might ask, what is the solution? What can be done? Well, after deeply analyzing 27 studies and reviewing programs and research study outcomes, 9 themes keep showing up over and over again that contribute to housing stability. Let's review the most essential ones moving forward. First, it's the housing first model. One of the biggest debates regarding services that address homelessness is, should we require people to get sober or go through treatment before we provide them with housing? After reviewing the data, the research is pretty clear on this, and the answer is no. So, what is the housing first model all about? Well, the housing first model provides people with housing immediately with no preconditions, no sobriety requirements, and no mandatory treatment. Therefore, the housing first model provides people with a key for a safe place to stay, and then they can decide when they are ready to start treatment. But one might ask, does this even work? Here's what the studies show. When you do that, people stay housed. A landmark study by Padgett and colleagues found that the Housing First participants had a 75% housing stability rate compared to only 50% in programs that required treatment first after a 48-month study period. Another long term study found that 68% of Housing First participants stayed housed for 4 years without ever being required to complete treatment or sobriety. This is huge because this shows that when you force somebody to get treatment first versus those who have a choice, the ones who have a choice will remain housed longer than those who were forced to become sober. This is huge because this goes to show that forcing people to be sober does not guarantee that they will stay housed. Now, this doesn't mean we ignore mental health or substance use, but what it means is that we stop using housing as an incentive to force program compliance. This is because when people feel safe and stable, they are more likely to engage with services on their own terms. Therefore, housing is the foundation and everything else gets built on top of that. When thinking about the housing first model, this model reminds me a lot about motivational interviewing, a modality that is popular in social work. Motivational interviewing was created to help address alcoholism among adults who needed motivation to accept services. What practitioners found was that when they told their clients what to do, such as going to rehab, the clients would do the opposite. However, when the practitioners would motivate them through engagement techniques that allowed them to explore their client's ambivalence to change, they would soon realize that they needed help and would start to commit to a program and eventually get sober. Just like the Housing First model, when the program provides housing first, people's basic needs are addressed, and as they work with their caseworker, they may eventually realize what they need to do to make the change that they need and get on the road to stability. However, for some people, it's not resistance that keep them from services. It's the sheer difficulty of going to appointments while being unhoused. Therefore, housing gives people a good head start. It stabilizes the ground beneath them so they can begin building the rest of their life, whether that's meeting a caseworker, writing a resume, or preparing for a job interview. That's the power of housing first. Stability becomes the foundation for recovery, not the reward for it. However, many will still disagree that it is effective. Therefore, this will be a topic of high debate on future podcasts. So click that subscribe button to be notified when it's released. Now, let's focus on the next theme that contributes to housing stability, which is trust and rapport. Personally, this is one of the themes that hit me the hardest and made me realize that this could be a key solution to ending homelessness. This is because study after study has shown that when outreach workers showed up consistently, kept their promises, and met people where they were, literally in the streets, under bridges, or in encampments, people engage with services. But one might ask, why? Well, this is because trust was built over time and people felt loved, which led to engagement in services, where they eventually became housed. One study followed a program called Street to Home in New York. They found that once word spread throughout the unhoused community, when people started to tell one another, and I quote, these people actually follow through, the reputation grew, it led to trust, and people started saying yes to services. This is essential because study revealed that the average service acceptance rate among unsheltered adults ranges between 12% to 63%, with an average range of 36%, meaning on average 36% of unsheltered individuals accept services when they are contacted by outreach workers. So this is a big deal because many refuse services due to a mistrust of outreach workers, which is understandable, especially when many of them showed up with law enforcement to their encampments or eventually initiated a conservatorship process, and for some, simply do not follow through on their promises. Now, I want you to think about what it means to live on the streets for years and have a system after system fail you time and time again. You've been turned away from shelters. You've been told there's a wait list. You've been arrested just for existing in a public space. You've been told to either enroll in services or go to jail during an encampment sweep. And then the social worker that showed up with law enforcement gives you nothing but a resource booklet after your stuff gets tossed in the trash. With all that in mind, most people would not trust the next person who shows up with the clipboard. I know I wouldn't. Therefore, building trust takes time, it takes consistency, and it takes empathetic and compassionate social workers who show up even when it's uncomfortable. For those of us who follow Jesus, this is deeply spiritual work. There's a principle called Ameo Dei, the idea that every person is made in the image of God. That means every person sleeping under a freeway overpass in Riverside County or in one of your counties reflects something of the divine. And our job isn't just to get them housed, but our job is to see them as people made in the image of God, deserving dignity and respect. This is why I love social work and I love addressing unsheltered homelessness because we are not only doing God's work, but we are showing that there are people out there that really care about them and really want to do what is necessary to help enhance their lives. Now, let's move on to the next theme, which is extended supportive services. So one might ask, what does that even mean? Well, that means providing services even after someone finishes a program as a means of following up as a relapse prevention protocol. Here's a pattern I saw over and over again in the research. Programs that place people in housing and then end services within a few months found that their clients would often return to homelessness. In social work, we follow a change process in which many call the GIM model, which is engage, assess, plan, implement, or implement the plan, evaluate, or evaluate to see if the plan is working, terminate services when it has worked, and then follow up to make sure that our clients are still doing well so we can end the therapeutic relationship. With this in mind, it is no surprise that providing services and following up after a program completion is essential and an ethical duty in social work. So, one study found that more than half of participants who received rapid rehousing assistance returned to homelessness within 24 months after the program ended. So one might ask, why? Well, this is because getting housed is one thing, but staying housed is another. People coming off the streets often don't have the income, the life skills, the community connections, or the healthcare access they need to sustain housing on their own. Programs that wrap around people after housing placement, continuing case management, peer support, healthcare linkage are the ones that have the best long term outcomes. So, what this means is that when services end, if we want to ensure that our clients do not return to homelessness, we need to continue following up and providing those supportive services as time goes on. And eventually, we will see that they are good and stable and keeping their housing for good. Therefore, getting out of poverty is not an overnight thing, and a year long program might not be the solution that magically solves someone's issue that they have been battling for years. This is why ensuring that someone stays connected, even after they have stable housing, is important for their stability. Think about it. It's kind of just like how alcoholics go to AA meetings even after reaching sobriety. Many who are unhoused may need something similar, according to what I saw in the data. Now, let's move on to the next theme, which is health. Health is very crucial in regards to tackling the unhoused crisis. What I found was that even if we find the best interventions and solutions, if someone is having a health crisis, they will not be able to finish a program or may not live to finish it. This is crucial because this can be a never ending battle. Because if someone does not finish a program, then they just took a seat from someone who could have, who is now in a deeper hole. Because remember, time is against the unhoused. This is because being unhoused comes with major health risks in relation to the lifespan statistics we reviewed earlier. For example, one 14-year study followed 73 people experiencing chronic homelessness who were enrolled into a permanent supportive housing. By the end of the study, 45% of the participants passed away due to their health issues. They passed away even when they were housed, because their health conditions, such as their physical and mental illnesses, substance use, and so forth, had gone untreated for so long that housing alone wasn't enough to save them. This is crucial because no one deserves to have to suffer and suffer alone because they are stuck on the streets and having to rely on the unhoused community or an outreach worker to find them before it's too late. Sadly, many of them don't get found and they end up passing away on the streets themselves. Therefore, the research makes a powerful case for what is called street medicine, bringing health care directly to people where they live. This means that they don't need an appointment, insurance, or a building to have to walk into. Therefore, a team of nurses, social workers, and doctors will literally walk on the streets and check in on the unhoused to address the healthcare needs. However, this is an emerging intervention, and street medicine programs are usually teamed with interns and resident physicians who volunteer their time to gain hours for their program. Overall, programs that integrated healthcare services from the start of their program show dramatically better outcomes in terms of stability, with fewer emergency room visits, fewer hospitalizations, and longer housing retention. Out of all the themes that were generated from the 27 studies that were analyzed using a thematic analysis, healthcare to me was the most significant in regards to being or working against the clock. Healthcare needs must be addressed on all levels of social work from micro, meso, and macro. Therefore, in a future podcast, we will debate this issue as whether all programs that serve the unhoused must incorporate a medical support team or services to address the unhoused healthcare needs because it is the difference between life and death. So, if someone out there disagrees with me when it comes to this notion, please email me at jarmour@inlandcompassion.org if you would like to debate me on this topic or someone who will be joining us for that debate. So far, if you had stuck with me this long in this podcast, please hit that subscribe button so you can check out this debate that's going to come in the future. And don't forget to hit that like button. Now, let's move on to the last theme of this podcast, which I want to highlight is essential for housing stability, which is independence and dignity. This theme is central because the research shows that people who experience homelessness want to keep their independence as much as possible. This means that they want choice. They want to be treated like adults who are capable of making decisions about their own lives. And they do not want to feel as if they are not free. After reviewing the studies, programs that provided people with consumer choice, which means letting people decide what services they wanted and how much staff involvement they preferred, what kind of housing felt right for them, had the best outcomes in terms of stability. One study found that when clients felt respected and in control, they were more likely to stay housed and more likely to stay engaged in services. Therefore, self-determination isn't just a social work value, it's a practical strategy and an ethical standard when it comes to the NASW Code of Ethics. So, to wrap this up, let's ask and answer the following questions. What does this mean for counties? For counties such as Riverside County, who have seen a steady rise in homelessness for over a decade, has a real opportunity right now to build programs that are grounded in what the research actually shows. First, integrate health and housing from the start. Partner with local hospitals, clinics, and medical schools to bring healthcare directly to people on the streets. Don't wait until somebody is in the ER. Second, invest in peer support. People who have been through homelessness and come out the other side have something that no textbook can provide, which is lived experiences. They build trust faster, they know the barriers from the inside, and they can walk alongside others in a way that changes lives. Third, commit to long term support. Don't celebrate a housing placement as a finish line. That's the starting line. Keep showing up. Keep following up and help them build a new community where they learn the skills they need to stay housed and reconnect with their sense of purpose. And fourth, see people before any program, any policy, any intervention. Choose to see the human being in front of you. That's where everyone starts. Overall, I envision that this podcast will help be the catalyst for change. However, change starts with a conversation and a shift in worldview. Therefore, we will debate these 4 points I shared as whether these points will work to help reduce or solve homelessness. Lastly, if you have a topic you would like to debate in regards to homelessness, please reach out and email me at jarmour@inlandcompassion.org so you can come on the podcast and we can share with the world our thoughts and opinions. To close this out, I want to share Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 7 through 8, which states, "If among you one of your brothers should become poor in any of your towns within your land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart and shut your hand against your poor brother. But you shall open your hand to him and lend him sufficient for his needs, whatever it may be." What this means to us is that we must open our hand, not just write a check, not just vote for a policy, but open your hand. That's relational, that's personal, that's what this work calls us to do. The research is clear. Long-term housing stability doesn't start with treatment. It starts with trust. It starts with relationships. It starts with someone deciding that another person's life is worth showing up for. Consistency, persistency, with dignity. That's what inland compassion is all about, and I'm grateful you're here for it. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody you know. You can find more research, more resources, the latest research, the scoping review, and upcoming content at inlandcompassion.org. Just look for the tab that says blog, podcast, and latest research section. Thank you for joining me today in Inland Compassion's new podcast series. This was the first episode that sets the context for all of the future debates we will be having. Now you have a clear idea on a lot of the topics we will be debating on. However, we will be opening this up for future debates for whatever the topic is. However, it must be related to unsheltered homelessness. Without talking about these things, without sparking debates and bringing to light our thoughts and issues, we will never be able to come up with a consensus and an agreement to what is actually going to help our society eradicate homelessness. I'll let you know one thing. I'm one of those individuals that truly believes that this issue can be resolved, but it's not going to take just micro interventions to help resolve this issue. These issues are going to need to go all the way to the top, to the White House, to where the majority of Americans come together and decide enough is enough. We're going to work together to solve this crisis. However, it's going to take a lot of work, and for now, we're going to have some pretty exciting debates. And I really appreciate you guys learning about the scoping review I did on the 27 studies. And if you need a copy of the report, I will be posting it up on the website once the journals I had submitted this research article I wrote have approved it. So whoever approves it first, hopefully it will be within this year, we will be putting that research article on the website. Overall, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more episodes.